Alright guys, ready? I think let's start. So before going into the topic for today, just let's have a look at our syllables, right? So we know what's coming up. Now, next week we're not going to have class because it's a holiday on Monday, okay? Just so you know. And after that we're going to have our next class on 26th of February, right? And please remember that on 26th of February you need to finish assignment 1, okay? So by not the next but the Monday after you need to be done with assignment 1. And also on 26th I'm going to release the topics for the first presentation, okay, which are going to be topics related to what we've done in the class. I will give you a list with your names, and in front of your name is going to be the topic on which you need to create presentation. But we're gonna go in more details on 26th. Okay, so enough about the syllables. All right. Okay, so today we're going to do a very interesting topic, right? And the topic we're going to do for today is pretty much the goal for every web application. Because let's be honest, the goal for every web application that is made is to create some profit, right? To make money for the owners, and then the owners are able to pay salaries to the team. So for this reason, today we're going to explore a tool with which you can charge users to use your application. I will show you how you can integrate this tool with the code bug fixing application, and hopefully once we do that you will then be able to implement this tool in your own applications in the future or in your job. So as you can see, the tool is called Stripe, and it's, I wouldn't say very easy, but it is pretty straightforward tool to use. It works in a similar way as ChatGPT, so you have your API key, which is unique to you, and you use your API key in your application. So when the user do a purchase, you get the the money from this purchase, right, to your API key. Okay, so yeah, you can see here on the slide that we're having actually not one but two keys. So you have your publishable key, which is available for the public, and you're also going to have your private key. In our case is going to be a test key. So in Stripe you can use your keys in two modes. So one mode is live mode, so you get a secret key for the live mode, where if this key is used an actual purchase takes place. If you use your test key, just a test is done and you're just imitating a purchase, so you can verify that your application works properly. Okay. Now, how are we going to implement payments using Stripe? So obviously there are a few steps that we need to take. It is not that simple by just providing your key to the application and then all the users get charged automatically. It doesn't work like this. Hello, yeah, no worries, come in. So as I said, it is not as simple as just providing the key and then the users get charged by itself. We need to track the users and how they use the application. So you can see here the steps. Firstly, we need to identify the user. So how we're going to do that? I will show you a very simple way to get a user fingerprint. Yeah, come in. I will show you a very simple way how to get the user fingerprint based on their browser and their device. And a fingerprint is going to be some number or some string that is going to be unique to the user. In that way, we will be able to identify the different users that use your application and eventually charge them. After that, the next step is going to be to track the user. So once you have the user identification, like the fingerprint, then you can track how many times the user has used your application. For example, maybe you want to set an algorithm where if the user uses your application more than 3 times, then you want to charge them, right? So they can get some experience with the application first, right? Okay. And yeah, you can see here that we also need to count their activity, right? And then the final step is obviously going to be to build the user using our Stripe API key. And this is how your payment page for the application that we're going to build today is going to look like. So you have your monthly plan, quarterly plan, and annual plan, right? So the users will be able to choose between each of those plans, and then they will be charged depending on the fee that you have set. Now, for our app, we're going to use this time a database, but it's going to be a very simple one. And this is because we just need to track 2 pieces of data. So we need to track the browser ID, okay, so which is the fingerprint of the user, and also we need to track how many times the user have used the application. Those are the 2 pieces of data that we're going to use for this simplified version of our payment algorithm. So we are going to use databases, but they are not going to be too complicated. Okay. So before starting, this time we're going to do the things a little bit different. I'll show you what I mean by this. So let me just go to Blackboard. Okay. Okay. So as you can see here on the Blackboard, we have 2 projects, right? So the code bug fixer project is the completed project with the payment method implemented, and then you have the code bug fixer base, which is a project that we're going to work on. In the code bug fixer base, we're having the code bug fixer implemented without the payment method, right? So what you need to do is to start the code bug fixer base, okay, download it, start it on your laptop, okay, and after that also you need to download the code bug fixer, which is the one with the payment method implemented, okay. For this project, since there will be more code to be written, what I'm going to do, instead of me typing the code, right, in order to save time, I'm going to copy and paste certain functions, and then I will explain you those functions line by line what they are doing. That way I think is better, because you'll be able to see the different components of the application very easily and focus on the functionality rather than on writing. Okay, so we're going to do it like this. Also, you can see here below I provided you 2 API keys. So one is my Stripe public and one is my Stripe private test key, so you don't need to create them yourself. I will show you now very briefly how you can create your own Stripe keys, right? But for the class, so we save time, we're going to use those from Blackboard, okay? Any questions? Okay. So, firstly, how you can register in Stripe and create your own account. Obviously, it is very straightforward. You just go to stripe.com, you create your own account, just like any other registration, and then when you click on dashboard, you can access your keys from right here. They're automatically generated once you create an account. It is very straightforward, and I even think initially you don't need to provide your credit card information, to get the payments from the users. You just have those keys, and obviously you can copy from here your publishable key and your secret key. If you click on test mode, all the keys are just for test. They're not going to do an actual purchases. If you remove this test mode, then you have your actual keys that are used for actual payments. Okay. Now, please everyone, you can download now the applications from here, those two projects, okay, and extract them in your laptops. Okay, so I have them here prepared, and okay, first download them and then we can continue. So you can get them from Blackboard?
Yeah, I don't. No.
Oh, okay, you don't. So you can.
My last week's project, will it work with what we're doing today?
Yeah, your last week project should work, should be fine. But just for consistency, let's use this one. Okay. But if you want to move the same functions to your project, it should work perfectly fine.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, here I also added some comments, so you know exactly on which place what to add.
Oh. Alright.
So guys, for those of you that already opened the project, go to the code bug fixer base project that's opened in the PyCharm and just create your virtual environment. Okay, so you can click here, interpreter settings, add interpreter, okay, and add new here. Okay. Yeah, actually, you can also do instead, I think it's easier, click, add new interpreter, add local interpreter, and then click OK. An even easier way is if you do Python 3 -m v and v. That's also a way how you can create virtual environment. Is it working now? No? Yeah, I think it's gonna be way easier. Yeah. Alright. Okay. So guys, after you're done with and you started both projects, right? What I want you to do is obviously to create a virtual environment inside the code bug fixer base. Okay, so here in this project we're actually going to do the work. So once you do that, obviously install all the libraries. So let's do pipe install Flask. Let's just do Okay, so yeah, make sure that you activate your virtual environment and then install all the necessary libraries, right? So install OpenAI, okay, install Flask, and finally install Stripe. Okay, so pipe install Stripe. Okay. So once you do that, you can see that those errors here, they completely disappeared, and we're all set. Now, the first step that I want you to do is to go to the config.py and to add there the Stripe API key. So you can either copy this from the other project or copy it from Blackboard. Okay, so paste the Stripe test key right here in the config.py. Let me just see. Okay, it works good. Okay, so once we have your API key, now we can start step by step to build our payment system. Okay, and as I showed you on the presentation, the very first step that we need to do is obviously to get the user information. Okay, so if you go to our complete project, get this function initialize database, okay, copy it and just paste it here under step 1. Okay, so here we need to initialize first our database with the user information, and what we're doing here is pretty much the same as we did here on the presentation. We're creating this table here, the browser ID and the usage counter. We'll create a database for that. So as you can see, firstly here we're creating an SQLite database, okay, and we give it a name. Okay, after that we create an object with which we can modify the database in this line here, and then we execute an SQL command inside our database. So with this command, what we're doing is, firstly, we create a new table if it doesn't exist. The table is called users, and we create two elements: fingerprint as the primary key, okay, which is going to be our browser fingerprint, and then we are also adding the usage counter, which is a simple integer where we're going to keep the track on how many times the user visited our application. Okay, and after that we commit our changes and we close the database. So you can see that in only 5 lines we created our database, and we created also a table inside it. Okay, next, go here and copy the get fingerprint function. Okay, and just paste it under the initialized database. Now, this function, so the browser fingerprint is not something that is available to us already. We're going to create the fingerprint ourselves, right? So what we're doing here, firstly, we're getting the ID of the user browser from this line here. So we do request user agent browser. Okay, so this is going to give us the ID of the browser. Then we're also going to get the version of the browser in this line here. After that, we are going to get the platform of our browser, which is something that is already available to us, right? So once we start our application, this is something that is already available. Since we're creating a web application, the browser information is already available to us. That's why you can do that easily. So once we get all of those parameters, then we'll add them in one long string, right? So you can see that here we combine them together. And after that, in the next line, we're going to use this hash, okay, to encrypt all the information into one ID that is going to be obviously unique to us, okay? And I can show you how this works very easily. So let's try something. If I go here in our index page, okay, and I write initialize database, okay, and then I go here and also click on the get fingerprint, okay, yeah, and if I run that, you can see that once we access our page, we got our fingerprint, okay? So this comes from this print statement right here, okay? So this is how your fingerprint looks like, which is going to be unique to the user. If I also want to, for example, print the browser, okay, this is just so you can understand it better. Let's say I want to print the version and I want to print the platform, just so you can see those parameters. And then once I go to the application, okay, so I guess they are not strings, so that's why I see none. But anyways, so they get combined into this hash here and they're encrypted, okay? So now, once you run those two functions, now obviously you have the unique user identifier, and now the next step that we need to perform is to count how many times the user visits our application, okay? So we have a specific ID, now we need to use it to record how many times the user visits the app, okay? So let's copy this function right here called get usage counter, okay, and I will just paste it under the get fingerprint. Okay, so what we're doing here is, again, we're assessing our database, okay, so you can see that we're doing exactly the same things as in the initialization, and this C parameter here means that we create a new cursor with which we're updating the database, okay? So firstly, here we do select usage counter from users based on the fingerprint that we have, okay? So we use the user fingerprint that we already created in order to create usage counter for this specific fingerprint, okay? And this usage counter is going to hold the information how many times the user visited the application. And after that, we're going to close the database. Now, if there is already usage counter in our database, then what we want to do is simply to increment it, right? And this is what we do in those lines here. Okay, we just update to the new value. So insert info, users, fingerprint, usage counter, okay, and then we add the value for the fingerprint and the usage counter. So this means that if we don't have a usage counter for the user we created, if we do have, we record the new information. Or actually, in that case, we get the new information, not record. So we're gonna just get the information from the usage counter here. Okay, so after that, copy this function called update usage counter and this function is going to be responsible for obviously updating the usage counter. So once the user visits the application, we want to update the usage counter with the new data, right? So one time the user uses the application, we increment obviously the usage counter with 1. Okay, so again here in this function we're simply assessing our database. Okay, bless you. And after that we set the usage counter to the new value in this line right here. And finally we close the database. Okay, so let's just sum up what we did so far. We initialize or we create a new database. After that we get the fingerprint of the user. Then we have a function that allows us to create a usage counter for the fingerprint or get the information of the usage counter in this statement right here. Okay, so from here we're just gonna get the information. And finally we have a function that updates the usage counter once the user visits the application. Okay, and you can see that all of those functions actually hit our database in the table that I showed you on the slide. You can see that they take about, I don't know, 50 lines or so, you know, for you to get all this functionality and track the user activity on your app. Okay, so once you have those functions all set, now we need to use them in our index page. So we actually use them to track the user activity. Okay. Now go to our code bug fixer app and just copy those lines here. So initializing database, a fingerprint, and usage counter. And I will explain you how we use them. Okay, so in our application, before we do any interactions with the code bug fixer, firstly we initialize the database. Okay, after that we get the fingerprint of the user, and finally we get the usage counter. Obviously initially it is going to be 0. Okay, but at some point it will start to increment. The good thing about the usage counter is even if the user reopens the browser, since the user opens exactly the same browser, we're still going to count the activity of that user. Okay, so they will not be able to go to the application, then restart the browser and be able to use our application multiple times again. Okay, so here this parameter keeps the count of how many times the user visited our app. Okay, now after that, here under our post method, where we check if the method is equal to post, okay, we're going to check if the usage counter is higher than some number. Okay, in this case I chose 3, but you can choose whatever number you like. If you choose 10, this would mean that if the user visits your application 10 times, after that they will see the payment page. So here what we simply do is we say if the usage counter is higher than 3, then redirect the user to our payment.html page, where obviously they will perform the payment and they will not see the rest of the application. Okay, okay, and finally here on step 4, so if you scroll down, you see that we obviously also need to increment our usage counter, right? So what I'm going to do here is I will increment the usage counter with 1. So after we use the ChatGPT here, I'm going to increment the usage counter with 1. Then I just print it here for debug purposes, right? So you can see the current value. And after that, I will update the usage counter in the database. So I will pass the fingerprint of the user, I will pass the usage counter, and this will update our database. So we store the information. Okay. And now let's see if our methodology works. So if I start the app, okay, and I just do a few usages, okay, and I go back here to the project, you'll see that our usage counter actually increases, right? So here we have one usage, here we have a second usage, and now let's continue just using the app. Okay, let's do it one more time. Okay, obviously now it's 3. Let's do it another time. You can see that now it's 4. And now if I click again, you can see that we don't see we see internal server error. Can somebody guess why we saw this?
The payment page now.
Exactly, so the payment page, obviously we didn't create it yet, and what happened here is that we reached this line right here. Okay, so this if statement got activated, and we're trying to return now the payment.html page, but we didn't create it yet. So for this reason we see the error. Now obviously in order to fix that we need to add a payment page. So what I will do here, I will simply copy and paste the payment page, and I will explain you how it is implemented. So I will go to the other project, do Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and I will add the payment page right here. Okay, so what's happening in our payment page? Now, firstly, obviously here we're using some style sheets, right? Those are predefined. We don't need to create those. Okay. And then we're adding some JavaScript, which is coming from the Stripe API. Okay. All of those things are already created for us. We're just using them. Okay. So in our page, we have the title payment. And after that, we want to create the different boxes that you saw on the presentation. So those here. Okay. So we're pretty much going to do the same thing 3 times. Okay. So we're creating the title, payment options, okay. And after that we're creating a new column, since we have our windows in columns. Question? No? Okay. And after that here we're adding a title, so our monthly plan, we're adding the price, and we're adding some description, okay, to our plan. Now here is interesting because here is the actual space where we're contacting Stripe. Okay, so as you can see here, we're creating a new form, okay, for our charge page, which we didn't create yet. But the idea is, once we click on the button in each of those boxes, we're going to get redirected to our charge page, okay, and I will show you this later. Okay, now you can see that we have an input with our plan, the value of our plan, right? So this is a monthly plan, the value is 500, which means $5, right? And after that, here in this script we just provide some parameters for Stripe. So the SRC is the Stripe checkout page, which is again a file that is already created. We just use it. Then we have this class here, just specifying the name. So if you want to modify the design, we can use this class here. Then you have here your public key. Okay, this is your public key from Stripe. You have the amount, you have the name. Okay, you have the their description, that is $5 a month. Okay, you have here an image, and so on. So this means that once you click on your payment button, you're going to see a window, okay, that is going to display all of those parameters, that is going to use those parameters in order for you to be able to conduct the payment. Okay, so let's see how that works. Now I have my payment page, and by the way, the rest of the page is exactly the same, right? We just do the same thing over and over again 3 times for the different payment plans. Okay, so let's now see how this works. I'm just going to rerun the application. Okay, and now you can see that all the plans are right here. And also, if I click on pay with card, you can see this Stripe window where you can conduct your payment, right? So as you can see, this image here, for example, is passed right here. Okay, and so on. So those parameters here are pretty much designing the window that we see. Okay, and now if you want to test if this works, you can write an example email for the credit card number. You can write 424242242. Okay, let's say 12 25 444. Okay, and then you complete your payment. Okay, and since we didn't create the charge page yet, we're getting an error here that we cannot be redirected, right? Okay, so we're able to create that, guys. How is it going here?
I'm still having so I haven't really done anything, but how do you change to
Okay, good, very good. Okay, guys. Actually, good job. All of you seems to have working projects. So yeah, after that, so obviously here, once we add our credit card information, we're seeing an empty page, right? So 03 25. Okay, so this means that we need to create this page right here that is not found, and this will be our charge page. So let's do that. Now, since we get redirected to a completely new page once we add our card information, obviously we need to create this page. So here on step 5, I will just copy this and I will explain it to you. Okay. Okay, so the idea is that once we add our card information, as you can see here from the payments.html file, so once we add our card information, we get redirected to the charge page. Okay, so we need to have this charge page in order to get redirected to there. So here is how we create it. So in Flask, to create a new page, we do app.route. We define the name of the page, so charge, which means that we're gonna have our domain slash charge, okay, and this will be using only the post method here, okay. So what we do, firstly, we initialize by taking the request. So we took the request from the previous page, and there you're going to have the amount from right here. You can see this input field is called amount, and we have the value of our plan. So this means once we select the monthly plan, we're getting our plan and amount variables right here in those input fields. And this is how they can get passed to the backend. So we do request form, and we get the amount and the plan. Okay. After that, here we're creating a new Stripe customer. So this means we add the new customer with its credit card information to Stripe. So we always have this customer information for future purposes, right? And after that, we add their email from the window that we just saw, okay? And we also add the Stripe token. And this is how we create a new customer here. Okay.
So let's say somebody subscribes and they want to cancel. Is it Stripe that will take care of all of that, or?
Good question. So yeah, there are many different type of plans that you can set up with Stripe. Stripe is a service which you can implement for subscriptions, also for a single time purchase. For example, in this case, in this example, we're doing a single time purchase, okay? So they pay $12 and then they can use our application for whatever time. If you want to explore Stripe more, and I've also used it as a subscription and as a single purchase, you can do that. So the idea that we save the customer, okay, is of course, for example, if you have a bigger application and you definitely want to remember the customer, right? You don't want them to always add their information every single time. In our application, because it's very simple, we don't have a page where the customer can edit their information, okay? But in other applications that you might create, you know, you might want to add this option, okay? So to your question, yes, usually if they subscribe, also you would add the option for them to cancel their subscription or to update it to a different plan, right? Monthly, yearly, and so on. Actually, one additional thing for Stripe that's actually very good, and if you create applications at your own pace and you want to implement Stripe, the easiest way, I think recently in the past few years, they created a complete Stripe page that handles all the payments. You just need to implement one link to your app, and after that the user gets redirected to their page where they can cancel subscription, update subscription, and so on, right? So you don't need to handle anything, just you need to provide, I think, two pieces of information. Okay? See? Yeah, Stripe checkout, yes, correct. And if we have time in the end of the class, I will show you on one of my other applications how this page looks like implemented, okay? But let's see how it goes. Okay, so we added a new customer, okay? And finally, we're going to add the charge. So we're going to charge the users right here, again with stripe.payment intent, and we create our payment, okay? So basically our charge function, the main goal of the charge function is to create and to save the user data in our Stripe account. So we have our customers, which is very important for every business, to have the emails and the payment data of your customers, and also you're charging the users with this charge function right here. So finally, obviously, you want to indicate to the users that they did the purchase successfully. So we're going to create this charge page, which is a very simple page, and I will just copy it from the other app. Okay, so I will just copy the charge page and paste it here. And you can see how simple this page is. So you just say you have successfully paid, okay, and as you can see here, I'm passing the amount that the user paid, and I'm passing the plan. So in this page, obviously the amount I divided by 100, so you can see that here in the payment we're using the amount in cents, so I divided in 100 to get it in dollars, okay, and then I display also the plan right here. Okay, I think you already noticed that this is how we pass data from the backend to the front end, doing those curly bracelets right here, and this is how you display it to the user. Okay, so let's run the application again and just make sure that this works. Okay, I put my email, my credit card information. Okay, then pay. Okay, we got an